Mr. Speaker, a vote for Labour next week is a vote for a very different set of choices. We would ask oil and gas companies to pay their fair share and reduce energy costs. We wouldn't hammer working people with the worst possible tax at the worst possible time.
I can tell the right honourable gentleman, I've listened to him over many weeks and many years, this guy is doomed to be a permanent spectator, Mr. Speaker, because we have a plan to fix the NHS and fix social care. They have no plan. We have a plan to fix our borders with our deal with Rwanda. They have no plan. We have a plan to take our economy forward. They have no plan. Let me tell you something, Mr. Speaker. He talks about the elections. He talks about the elections in a few days' time, Mr. Speaker. Let me remind him that everywhere you look at Labour administration, it is a bankrupt shambles.
Imagine living in a country where flying your own national flag had become so politically controversial that the former Prime Minister feels compelled to write a newspaper column defending people who dare to display the St. George's Cross or the Union Jack. Welcome to Britain in 2025, where even our most basic symbols of national identity have been weaponized in an endless culture war that's turning neighbourhoods into battlegrounds and political discourse into absolute chaos. Boris Johnson has just lobbed an absolute grenade into this debate by savaging Sir Keir Starmer over his reaction to flags appearing across England, accusing Labour of not sharing the patriotism of ordinary Britons. And honestly, this might be the most perfectly calibrated political attack Boris has launched in years. Let's dive into why this matters so much more than you might think. Quick favour. If you're loving what we're doing here at British Mirror, hit that subscribe button and smash the bell icon. Over 94% of you haven't subscribed yet. It's completely free, takes about 2 seconds, and honestly means the world to us. Cheers if you've already done it. Right, back to the show. Boris Johnson took to Twitter, because obviously that's where all serious political discourse happens these days, to declare that Keir Starmer's Labour Party doesn't share their patriotism. Not disagrees with their policies, not has different priorities, but fundamentally doesn't share the basic emotional connection to country that ordinary people feel. That's not a policy critique. That's questioning the very soul of the Labour Party. That's suggesting they are somehow UN British, disconnected from the people they claim to represent, fundamentally alien to the national character. It's political napalm, and Boris knows exactly what he's doing. The former PM wrote in the Daily Mail, naturally, because if you're launching a culture war salvo, you might as well do it in the publication most likely to amplify it, about his appreciation for those raising flags. He said he has nothing against these impromptu displays of national feeling. Nothing against them. In fact, he celebrates them. He sees them as wholesome expressions of love for country, spontaneous bursts of patriotic joy that should be encouraged rather than questioned. And implicitly, his contrasting his uncomplicated enthusiasm with what he sees as Labour's suspicious, over-analytical, constantly qualifying approach to national symbols. So what's actually happening on the ground? Flags started to be put up in public spaces over the summer, hanging them from street lamps and signposts. Not during the World Cup, not for the Jubilee, not for any official national celebration. Just randomly, spontaneously, mysteriously appearing like patriotic mushrooms sprouting after rain. Street lamps and signposts across England suddenly adorned with St. George's flags and Union Jacks, creating what Boris describes as a festive, almost Jubilee mood. And immediately, predictably, inevitably, this became politically contentious. Because nothing in modern Britain can just be simple and uncomplicated. Everything must be analyzed, contextualized, politicized, and ultimately weaponized. Those putting them up say they are simply a symbol of patriotism. Fair enough. Can't argue with that. People love their country. They fly their flag. Tale as old as time. But others, and this is where things get spicy, believe they are fear-mongering tools of the far right, used to stir up anti-immigration sentiments and other tensions. Fear-mongering tools. That transforms a piece of cloth into a political statement, a dog whistle, a coded message about who belongs and who doesn't. Suddenly, your St. George's flag isn't expressing pride in English history and culture. It's making a statement about immigration, about diversity, about who you consider to be properly English. The flag hasn't changed. The interpretation has. And that gulf in interpretation reveals fundamental divisions in how different groups understand national identity. Sir Keir Starmer, being the cautious lawyer he is, tried to thread this needle with the delicacy of someone diffusing a bomb whilst wearing oven mitts. Speaking to The Guardian back in September, he said that St. George's flag represents our diverse country, and that he would not tolerate people being intimidated on our streets because of their background or the color of their skin. Our diverse country. That's the key phrase. Keir is trying to reclaim the flag as a symbol that includes everyone who lives here, regardless of background. He is attempting to separate legitimate patriotism from xenophobia, to say you can love your country without excluding others. Noble goal. Politically fraught execution. He also told BBC Radio 5 Live that he is very encouraging of flags, thinks they are patriotic, and believes they are a great symbol of our nation. So far, so good. Classic politician move. Establish your patriotic credentials before delivering the caveat. And the caveat came. He doesn't think flags should be devalued and belittled, and sometimes when they're used purely for divisive purposes, it actually devalues a flag. There it is, the qualification. The suggestion that whilst flags are wonderful in principle, in practice some people might be flying them for the wrong reasons. That some displays might be problematic, divisive, unwelcoming. And that's what's driven Boris absolutely spare. Because from Boris's perspective, patriotism shouldn't require caveats. It shouldn't need qualifications or carefully worded statements about diversity and inclusion. It should be simple, uncomplicated, joyous. Boris said these flag displays give the winter months a festive, almost jubilee mood. He told his children they're just a way to say hooray for England, hooray for Britain. Hooray! Not a political statement, not a coded message, just straightforward, uncomplicated, childlike enthusiasm for country, and is contrasting that innocent joy with what he sees as Labour's suspicious, overcomplicated, constantly anxious approach to national symbols. Boris added, with characteristic bluntness, that people are putting English and British flags up because a Labour government can't be relied on for simple and uncomplicated patriotism. Can't be relied on. That's a devastating accusation. His saying Labour has made patriotism complicated, fraught, anxiety-inducing. That under Labour's suspicious gaze, flying a flag becomes a political act requiring justification rather than a spontaneous expression of national feeling. And for many people, that rings absolutely true. They feel like they have to defend their patriotism, explain it, qualify it, prove it's not racist or exclusionary. And that's exhausting. But Boris didn't stop at flags. Oh no, because what's a good culture war salvo without dragging immigration policy into it? He criticized the government for cancelling the previous Tory government's plans to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. Ah yes, the Rwanda scheme. That spectacularly expensive, legally dubious plan that would have cost £200,000 per person according to the Migration Observatory. £200,000 to send someone to Rwanda. You could fund someone's entire education, buy them a house deposit, set them up in business, and still have change left over. But supposedly it was a deterrent. Critics called it inhumane and potentially illegal. Labour scrapped it almost immediately upon taking power. Keir's got a very clear vision for making sure that people can really deal with the cost of living, that public services will get back on their feet, and is building a Britain that is tolerant, that is open, that is confident in itself, and that is really about renewal and investment in young people, as opposed to the division and the decline of the opposition. Now, that's a lovely soundbite. It ticks all the boxes. Vision, tolerance, renewal, investment. But the problem is, it sounds like exactly the kind of thing a political operative would say when they are desperately trying to spin a disaster into something manageable. Because out in the real world, at places like Ally Pally, people aren't buying it. And here's the thing about these darts chants. They're not organized political protests. There's no campaign group behind this. No one's handing out flyers or coordinating on WhatsApp groups. This is organic, spontaneous public anger. These are regular people, many of whom probably voted Labour in the last election, who've decided that Starmer has let them down. And they're expressing that frustration in the most British way possible, by taking the piss out of him at a sporting event. It's the modern equivalent of being pelted with rotten vegetables in the town square. And for Starmer, that should be terrifying. Because if you've lost the darts crowd, you've lost Middle England. You've lost the working-class voters Labour desperately needs to hold on to. You've lost the people who gave you a massive parliamentary majority and expected you to deliver real, tangible change. There's also something deeply symbolic about this happening at the darts. Darts isn't football. It's not rugby. It's not a sport associated with hooliganism or political extremism. It's darts. It's one of the most accessible, inclusive, working-class sports in Britain. It's a sport where everyone's welcome, where the crowd is as much a part of the spectacle as the players, where the atmosphere is all about having a good time. And if that crowd is turning on you, if they are using their platform to collectively express their disdain, then you're not just unpopular with a fringe group, you're unpopular with the mainstream. Now, let's talk about the rumors swirling around Westminster, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. There are whispers, increasingly loud whispers, of in-party insurrection. Labour MPs are reportedly growing restless. Some are concerned that Starmer's achievements aren't cutting through to the public. Others are worried that the party is repeating the mistakes of previous Labour governments, focusing too much on messaging and not enough on material improvements to people's lives. There's a sense, rightly or wrongly, that Starmer is all style and no substance. That is brilliant at looking prime ministerial, but less brilliant at actually governing. And when your own MPs are starting to question your leadership, when backbenchers are grumbling to journalists about the direction of the party, that's when a prime minister's position becomes genuinely precarious. The comparison to Boris Johnson is particularly telling. Johnson was forced out not because he lost a general election, but because his own party turned on him. His approval ratings tanked. His MPs decided he was an electoral liability, and he was gone. Now, Starmer's in a slightly different position because Labour has a huge parliamentary majority. He's not at immediate risk of losing a vote of no confidence. But politically, the trajectory is worrying. If his ratings continue to plummet, if Labour starts losing by-elections, if those darts chants become representative of broader public sentiment, then his MPs will start to panic. And panicking MPs do unpredictable things. They start briefing against the leadership. They start positioning themselves for a potential contest. They start asking whether the party will be better off with someone else at the helm. And let's be brutally honest here, Starmer isn't exactly a charismatic figure. He's competent, certainly. He's serious. He's loyally, but is not inspiring. He's not the kind of politician who sets hearts racing or imagination soaring. He's the kind of politician you vote for because he's the safe option, the sensible choice, the grown-up alternative. But when the safe option starts to feel like the wrong option, when competence without charisma starts to look like just boring ineffectiveness, then people stop giving you the benefit of the doubt. And right now, the British public has stopped giving Starmer the benefit of the doubt. They are not waiting patiently for things to improve. They are chanting about him at the darts. There's also a generational element to this. Starmer came to power promising change, promising to fix the mess left by years of Conservative government. Young people, in particular, had high hopes. They wanted action on climate change, on housing, on job security. They wanted a government that actually gave a damn about their future. And so far, they're not seeing it. The promised changes haven't materialized. The cost of living is still crushing. Opportunities still feel limited. And that disillusionment is dangerous because young voters are the ones who can swing elections. They are the ones who can energize campaigns or stay home and doom them. And if they've decided Starmer's just another disappointing politician, then Labour's in serious trouble. But perhaps the most damning thing about these darts chants is what they represent, a complete breakdown in the relationship between the government and the governed. People are supposed to respect their leaders, even if they disagree with them.